What's up, guys? It's D, the Grim Gamer. Welcome back for another Tuesday night stream here in Grim's Gaming Dungeon. No gaming going on tonight, but there's a reason for that I'll talk about here in just a few moments. But tonight, I wanted to do something a little bit different, something kind of special, because it was the generosity of several people that have allowed me to get to this point, I guess, as far as my streams and my streaming. And I thought that this would be a cool way for the audience, you guys, that got me to this point, to get to know who it is that you're supporting and why. I mean, I guess maybe that's more of a question for me that I'd like to have answered. Because at the end of the day, I'm just a guy that sits here and plays games. And apparently, that has been entertaining enough for many of you to support me and to support what I do. And for enough of you to continue to come back and continue to watch the streams. And I really appreciate that. But I thought that this would be a cool way for you guys to get to know a little bit more about me. And as we chat throughout the night, it would give me a chance to maybe know a little bit more about you too. I'm going to stress by saying I've never went into this trying to make this a career or anything like that. That's a whole topic I might get into a little bit later, but I feel like trying to do this at all, one of the main things would be the connection that the streamer has to the audience. And I figure what better way to create that than with doing something like this right here. So after tonight, I will be getting back to my regular, original scheduled programming. But now that I've just finished up Arcade Paradise a couple of nights ago, this will give me a perfect opportunity to actually get to do this. So I see Suave Beardson in the chat. What's up, Suave? Appreciate you being here. He's also dropped the Discord link. So anybody out there that comes across this, is watching this, if you want more gaming content in your life, then you're going to want to check out the Grim Beardson Discord. That is a joint Discord server between Suave Beardson and myself. Suave is my brother. He streams every Wednesday and Sunday nights. He is currently doing a playthrough of A Plague's Tale Innocence right now, which has been a blast to watch. You can also stay up to date with our stream schedules on there as well, as long as some other links to some other things. So check all of that stuff out. So I guess I'm going to start this whole thing off by I want to start things off with a little bit of a story of how and why I got into doing this in the first place. And there's a couple people that I got to give some wholehearted shout outs and thanks to, because without them, I wouldn't be here doing any of this. So first, I want to give a shout out to a new follower. I'm going to butcher this, and I know this, but Pinguelshi. Again, I'm sure I butchered the hell out of that, and I apologize in advance, but I appreciate the follow regardless. Thank you very much. So, again, to start this whole thing off, how and why I got into all this. So, I guess I'll start by saying I have been playing games my entire life. But as it happens, as you get older, you have more responsibilities, you have obligations, financial obligations, and just life gets in the way. And that gaming time, at least for me, drastically went down. I still played games on occasions, but just not like I used to when I was younger, but would still play occasionally. Well, there's a good friend of mine. We've been friends now over 20 something years. And he's one that I got to give a huge shout out and a thank you to. And I'll go into the reasons why here in just a moment. But this friend of mine, his name is Nick, he came to me a couple years ago with this opportunity to do something that I thought would be a lot of fun. And he had met someone else that had, I don't want to say, for lack of a better term, it was kind of like a little flea market kind of thing. And they wanted to start a little retro game corner in the back of the store. And so he told this other person, like, look, if we're going to do something and we need somebody to organize some things and come up with some plans for some things, I want this guy, being me, on board with this because I know how he plans, I know how he organizes, and I think that would go a long way into what we're trying to do. And he also enjoys doing games, and he was the one that kind of brought me into that. So once that happened, I had a bunch of things in my possession. I have another hobby, which I occasionally ride motorcycles. It's getting a little cold for that now, but over the years, I had acquired and collected miscellaneous parts and pieces and, just a whole bunch of stuff from various other motorcycles and things of that nature. And then I had some other things like some old Pokemon cards, and I had a couple things just lying around that I wasn't doing anything with. So he helped me unload a bunch of that stuff. And the money that we got from that, we went out and bought several other game consoles, several games for those consoles, and started getting some CRT TVs together and started getting stuff together to do this little retro game corner. But before that really could get off the ground, it kind of fell apart. There was some other things going on there amongst all parties, and it wasn't working out. But we didn't want to give up on this idea that we had, because the idea, when it came right down to it, this retro game corner was going to be essentially our individual take on an arcade. Now, arcades haven't really been relevant for many years by this point. I mean, there's arcades still around, but not like they used to be in the 70s and 80s and maybe even the early 90s. But the idea was that if we were to do something like an arcade, the arcade cabinets, they're big, they're expensive, and typically they only play one game. And so what if we took a bunch of game consoles, hooked them up to the TVs, we can get some couches, and we can set up this whole little area, and people can come in, pay the fee, and essentially have a similar experience like we had growing up when we played games when we were young. To sit there on the couch with your buddies, your siblings, your cousins, or whoever, and sit down and play games. And we wanted to create a throwback to those days growing up in this environment. And instead of arcade console or our arcade machines, our machines would play whatever games we had at our disposal. And so even though the initial idea and plan with this other person kind of fell apart, we loved the idea, and we still wanted to do something with that. So he found a different space that the space itself wasn't necessarily ideal, but it was affordable, and it's something that we could do at that time. And so we took whatever resources that we had, we moved it to this space. We tried to spruce it up as best we could. And in May of 2022, we opened what was called then CD's Games. Here's where the streaming stuff starts to come in. I'm getting to it, I promise. So once we got everything kind of up and running, we were basically out of money. We didn't have any more money for advertising or anything of that sort. All we could do was like word of mouth. And so we had to use other avenues. So your social media, your streaming platforms, things of that nature, to try to get the word out about who we are and what we were doing. And the problem with that is that with the schedule that I had then and the schedule I still have, I couldn't be there at the shop all the time. And so it was decided that I would try to do streams from home. And it was Nick at that time that gave me half of the equipment that I still use to this day to do this from my home. He ended up giving me a laptop, which what I was using at the time. He later would go and give me the desktop tower that I'm currently using now. He gave me the upscaler to be able to use for the consoles. He gave me the capture card. And so without all of that stuff, this isn't happening. And this is where another shout out goes out to my brother, Suave Beardson, because he's also given me a few things over the years that allow me to do this. This microphone is one of them. This microphone stand that it's sitting on is one of them. It's hooked up to a small interface that's over here out of view. That is something that he had given to me. It wasn't for streaming. I don't remember right offhand. It was for Christmas one year. I don't remember what I was doing at the time, but he gave me those things to be able to work on a different project then. But all of those things came together from those two guys that make all of this now possible. And so when I started doing my streams from home, I had a couple older consoles in my possession that didn't go to the shop. They were from my own personal collection, which wasn't very big, but I had an N64, I had a PS2, I had the PS3, and I could do some things with that. So I started doing streams from home under the banner and the branding of CD's Games to try to get that word out. Unfortunately, before I say that, I would do a bunch of them from the house, and I started on this Tuesday night time slot at 11:30 start time, which is what I'm doing right now. So that's kind of why this works, because in the start, that was the exact same time and day that I was doing then as I'm still doing now. And so I was doing those from home. All of those streams were all recorded, just like I do now. And they are all on the archive YouTube channel. So all of those early streams from the CD's Games days, you can still go back there and you can still watch. Games that I played like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. I played WrestleMania 2000. I played Metal Gear Solid. I played Stuntman, Driver 2, amongst several others. And so all of that's still there to watch. But we do a couple other things at the shop also. There's a few streams that we did together. We did one on Myst, which has now basically became the worst game I've ever played in my entire life. And then we did like some Mario Party on the N64, stuff like that. And we had a good time with it. Unfortunately, we realized very quickly that what we were trying to do just wasn't working. It wasn't working, and I don't think it was going to work. The idea, I still believe in to this day. I think it's a very good, sound idea. It just... we didn't have the proper way to implement it, and we didn't have, in my opinion, the best place to do it either. And so we tried to change things to where we would do the whole buy, sell, trade thing. You know, buy, sell, and trade different games, different consoles, that sort of thing. We tried to get into that thing, and we tried to get some tournaments going, and it wasn't... he was also doing repairs. You know, so he would fix HDMI ports on a bunch of the newer consoles, and I learned a few things. I learned how to work on a couple different consoles, fixing certain things. So all stuff that I will take from that entire experience and cherish, and I might be able to use that information at some other point in my life, but. With all of that, the business itself was paying its own bills, but it wasn't paying us anything. We couldn't quite get over that threshold of it really starting to pay us. And it got to a point where we realized that this probably just wasn't meant to be. And so at that time, he wanted to still try to take that space because we still had the space, and he wanted to try to do something with music, I think it was, because that's one of his other primary passions. And so it was decided then that he would take all that over, and then I would just kind of do my own thing. And at the time, we had the Twitch account and we had the YouTube account. The YouTube account had so much content on there, and a lot of content that hadn't even come out yet. It was already pre-scheduled to come out at a later time. And so when we split things up, he got the Twitch account, I got the YouTube account, which was then rebranded as the one I still use to this day. That's why all of that content is still there and still able to be watched at this time. And so I had to start over at that time with my own Twitch account, which is all fine. It all worked out. And I guess now that I've already been rambling quite a bit, longer story short, here we are now today. Like what I say before, 14, 15 months later, something like that, to now hitting this affiliate status because of all of you, the viewers. And I never thought that once I got into this, that this wouldn't be, and it does make for a great archive. I'll touch on that here in just a moment too. But I never thought that I would ever get to this point. Again, that was never even a goal. I just wanted to, at first, I wanted to draw some attention to the business. You know, we had a website, we had the shop front, we had all these things. But doing this for myself, my whole thought process is I'm going to sit down and play these games regardless. I just enjoy playing games. And so doing this, I'm just going to hit that go live button, and anybody that wants to come by, hang out, I'm all for it. The proverbial door is open, so to speak. And what I really got to look back on with the CD's Games era of that and that chapter of my life and everything, I'm very thankful for, because it has sparked something that I'd been missing for a long time. Now, like I said when I first started, I've enjoyed playing games my entire life, but the gaming time had gone way down the older I got, and I just didn't have that kind of time for it anymore. But one thing that he had told me when we started all this is, with the amount of money that I put in and the different consoles and games that I bought and all the investment financial-wise that I put in, he told me that his goal, when it's all said and done, whenever that may be, was that I get more out of this than I ever put in. And to that point, that's exactly what happened. So I thank him very much for that, because when it was decided that we were going to not continue this anymore, I wound up getting a bunch of money from a bunch of the things that did sell. And then a bunch of the stuff that didn't sell that I had already purchased, like this console that's sitting right here behind me, I just got to take back home with me. So I wound up probably doubling the amount of consoles and games that I had in my possession, to then have something to now bring here to this one and to play and show off to all of you. So that sparked getting back into games and just enjoying playing games for the sake of playing games. And it also sparked a whole different part of gaming for me, and that's the collection aspect of it. Back in the day, you know, when we were younger, a lot of the games that we had would end up having to get traded in, right? We'd have to trade those in order to get something different, to get something new, to play something different or new. And a lot of those games we didn't get to keep back then. And so I like now being able to go back and find a bunch of those, reclaiming them, putting them back in the collection. And then it also sparked curiosity of, well, now I've got consoles now that I never owned when I was younger. And now I'm curious to know, what else do these consoles have that I don't even know about? So now I've got entire new gaming libraries that can open up to me for other games that I never even knew existed, or if I knew they existed, I never got to try before, or maybe I just wasn't interested at the time. So all of that has spawned this like love and passion for just gaming and game collecting that I have now, and I'm very thankful for all of that. And I'm thankful for you to be here to experience all of this with me. Training Games In was so lit. Was it really worth it? No. I can tell you right now that it probably wasn't worth it, because how many games did we have when we were younger that if we still owned, probably be worth something these days? Suave actually was, whether he intended on this or not, was pretty smart about some of the games that he had, specifically for the GameCube, and Suave will already know what ones I'm talking about, but he kept a couple of them from when we were younger, and he still held on to them all this time, and go figure, those are worth quite a bit of money these days. Where a lot of the ones that I held on to, they're not really worth squat. But a lot of them do come down to just having, what's the word I'm looking for? They mean something to me. And so that's what's important, at the end of the day. We have missed out on if we didn't do the trade-in thing. Exactly. One of my big ones every year, for the longest time were the wrestling games, and had, I swear, almost all of them. And over the years would trade some of them in and maybe get the newer one, or, get something else and everything. So, we played a lot of games. We were fortunate enough to play a lot of games because we had that, I guess, that power to trade stuff in and get something new and get something different. But yeah, now there's several games. I was just in one of these game stores, retro game stores, just this last weekend. And one of the games that we had when we were younger was Pokemon Crystal, and I saw a copy of that, the loose cartridge, $160. I'm like, oh, that hurts. Like, ouch, $160. Damn. 7-day return policy for GameStop was a game changer. Yeah, well, if you could use that to your advantage, yeah, that would be a game changer for sure. So I think with that, I thought there was still another thing or two that I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember now. I think I've rambled long enough. So if there's anybody out there that has some questions, we can talk a bunch of other stuff gaming wise, or, even if it's not necessarily gaming wise. I want to talk to you guys, let you get to know me a little bit. I will say there would be a couple topics that I would not touch. But if something were to come up, I would just kindly say, pass, and we're going to move on past that. But yeah, if you guys got some questions for me, and or we can just talk some other gaming related stuff or whatever, I'm here for it. This is what it's all about. So Suave had mentioned, oh hey, Lurk, how you doing? Oh, what's my SSN? Yeah, pass. No, sir. How you doing, Lurk? It's good to see you. You're one of the ones that I appreciate greatly, because you're here all the time. And this is for, viewers. Try and make it like that commercial. For viewers like you. So anything that you might want to know, except for things like that. But Suave earlier did say too something about how YouTube makes for a great archive, and it really does. That was the main reason that we started that back then anyway. I wanted that to accomplish a couple things: to archive the streams, because the streams only last so long on this platform, and I wanted somewhere where they will always be viewable. You could always see them. And then I also wanted to use some of my creativity to create other game-related content to put on there to also drive traffic at the time. But now it's just something else that I like to do. So I've been doing stuff like when I go out to these game stores and, pick up different items or different games, and I can show them off to you and show off different game stores, that are in my area so that people can see, what's out there and see the different stuff that I pick up. And I've had a blast doing that. I just recorded another one this last weekend where I went to 3 different locations and picked up several things. That video will go up next Sunday, I think at 9 a.m. Sunday morning. So you can check that one out. I've got one other one after that where I picked up something gaming related that I did an unboxing and review of. So stuff like that's a lot of fun. Plus the whole archive thing makes all of that completely worth it. So let me ask a question here. So this will go out to you guys. And this one might be tough, but I'll ask because if somebody were to ask me this question, I know what my response would be. So what would you guys say is your favorite game of all time? I think I know what Suave's is. I'm pretty certain on that. I could be wrong. At least it's in the right series, I believe. But Lurk, what would you say your favorite game of all time would be? Can't pick a single one, not possible. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's tough. I had to put quite a bit of thought into that myself personally. And I even have it narrowed down to a top 3. But say yeah, so Lurk tells me same thing, impossible. So yeah, I could name a top 3, but if somebody were to say top 5, couldn't do it. I wouldn't know what to put for the other 2. But I do have a top 3. And I have them on the shelf back here. So just a second and I'll grab them. So, not the Jason Jackson racing hat. Not that one. We've got this one. And we've got this one. So, if I had a Mount Rush, I think I can narrow it down to top 3 or 5. That's fair. I mean, one thing also is that, come on, it's a focus camera. There we go. There are so many games out there, right? And as I was growing up, I was I shouldn't say I was limited. I limited myself to a certain couple genres and a couple certain games. Didn't branch out all that much, I don't feel like, looking back on it. Again, the wrestling games, a huge one. Played almost all of them when they came out, from like WWF Warzone to SmackDown to the SmackDown versus Raws. Had a couple WCW games in there even. The wrestling games were huge for me for a long time. And then a bunch of racing, whether it be like NASCARs, because Dad was a huge NASCAR fan, so he bought every one of those as they released every year for quite a while. So played a bunch of NASCARs, and then, with the boom of street racing, had a bunch of like Need for Speeds and, things of that nature. And, looking back on it, I feel like I kind of limited myself to those few games. There were other ones in there, sure, but I don't feel like there was really a lot. So that's one thing about now, is trying to open myself up to a lot more games, a lot of different gaming libraries for different consoles, and just seeing what is out there and discovering some other games. One of our favorite games, MGS1 would have to be in there. Sure, absolutely. The Backyard Wrestling game was the best. Let's not lie. Don't lie to the people, Suave. Backyard Wrestling, the game, it was horrible. It was awful. And the fact that there was two of them kind of blows my mind a little bit. Not even gonna lie about that. It was it was terrible. The VHS tapes, which we were just talking, not an hour ago, hour and a half ago, also awful. All of that entire thing was bad. But I'll for the sake of some conversation here, excuse me, I'll go over some of my top favorite games. The rest of my life, then Siberia. That's fair. That's fair. Siberia, I can't believe I actually have it in my collection here on the shelf, but Siberia is it's probably the second worst game I've ever played. Siberia it's basically the definition of trash. So yeah, I'd rather play backyard wrestling over that any day of the week. Siberia's garbage. So as far as say some of my top favorite games, if somebody would say, "Hey Grim, what's your favorite game of all time?" It's Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. I love this game. I love everything about this game, and it's got everything in a game that I love. As far as the games that I enjoy, I love a game that is a single-player story, that has an amazing story, that has character development, that has amazing characters, that has well-written dialogue, that has great interaction amongst the characters, beautiful set pieces, as far as the overall locations of the game and visuals of the game. This ticks all of those boxes and then some. This game, to me, is about as perfect of a game as I could possibly ever ask for. The interaction between the characters, like Drake and Sully, Elena, Chloe, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that as far as character interaction. The characters are all voiced so perfectly well. I feel like, when I'm listening to those characters, I can get sucked right into their conversation, and I could just listen to them talk for hours. The puzzle aspect of it, and the exploration, the trying to find, or put all these pieces together to find these treasures while you're trying to beat the bad guy to it, and the locations, it's the action sequences in it are amazing. I mean, it's so well done. And with this specific one, now this one, and Suave, I think we've talked about this before with Metal Gear Solid 4. Without the other games, this one doesn't pack as much of a punch. This game is amazing, but this one I'd have to pick as my top favorite one because of the other ones leading up to it. So to play the whole rest of the series so that you get hooked by these characters of Drake and Elena and Chloe and Sully, and you really get invested in these characters and everything that they go through out of their previous adventures, and then to come back with this, and they have throwbacks to the original trilogy. They have a new story, and they tried to take, and specifically with this one, they tried to take Nate and Elena and slow down, live the normal life, and they tried to make Nate very relatable as just your regular average dude with the regular average day job. And I loved that. And there's a scene in the game where it's just Nate and Elena sitting on the couch eating dinner, and they're just discussing their days. And I love that. I absolutely loved it. It was so well written, and it was so good. And I love everything about it. The other ones, obviously, are stepping stones and chapters to getting to this. But then when they went and did this, it was perfect. They didn't ignore all the rest of the games or all the rest of the events. They tied it all together, and then the epilogue. So anybody who may have never played this, I don't want to spoil the end and the epilogue, but the epilogue was kind of out of left field. I didn't expect it, but it was one of the most beautiful endings and epilogues to not only any game, but any story I have ever seen in my entire life. It is phenomenal, and I absolutely 100% love Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. It's a brilliant game and my all-time favorite. Play 1 through 3 to really appreciate 4. And that's the way I feel about this one. It's the same way. You got to play 1, 2, and 3 to appreciate 4 to the fullest. Unfortunately, I have seen some other people occasionally just doing a playthrough of Uncharted 4, and they'd open up by saying, well, I've never played any of the Uncharteds before, but this is like a remastered one on PS5, so I'm going to play this. And I'm like, no, you're going to miss out on so many things that why and what makes these characters so relatable and so why they're so beloved by the fan base. You're going to miss all of that stuff, and you're going to miss the throwbacks to all of the different stuff. Like when Nate is in the attic and he's going through all the different trinkets. Let's see. Wrong app. Sorry, I can't delete my own messages. Said a word. Well, it's fine. In this dashboard thing here, I can't. It doesn't seem like it wants to let me do it either. Anyway, so for instance, when Nate is in the attic and he's going through all the little different trinkets that he's collected over the years from his previous adventures. Like, if you don't play those other adventures, you have no idea what he went through to get those objects and what the meaning behind all of it was. So you miss all those things. So yes, you do have to play 1 through 3 in order for 4 to mean that much. It's just, it's fantastic. So Lurk says, no particular order. Fallout New Vegas. Suave's going to say, to hell with that game. Final Fantasy Tactics, the SmackDown series. Hard to narrow that down any further. Well, that's fair. SmackDown covers a lot of ground for a long time. Vice City, San Andreas. Okay, yeah, that's fair. What? Disgaea? 1 through 3. I've never heard of that. I have no idea what that is. Skyrim is obviously a classic. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Golden Sun, don't think I've ever heard of. Disgaea. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I'd never heard of it. I don't know what it is. I've never even seen that before. So Super Mario Kart. Okay, it's a classic. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 arcade game. That's also, yeah, okay, got you there for sure. Yeah, like I said, I knew Suave was not going to be a fan of Fallout New Vegas. He's got a whole thing against that. Yeah, the SmackDown series covers a lot of ground. So with that, my next game may come as a surprise to people, and some may even be like, I never heard of that. Half the time when I bring this game up, most people have never even heard of it before, which blows my mind, but I also got to remember that it probably wasn't that big of a title. So, times put into those either solo. Solo or with my little brother. Yeah, played a lot of games too. Me and my brother over the years. The solo games, I think, just where it was at. So send me a message off stream. Okay, I will. Yeah, we did kind of stream before streaming existed. If we could have streamed back then, we would have. Um, we definitely played games enough, especially together, to do it. And I would have loved to have done streams on this next game, way back then too. Did one sometime back now. So if I had to go and say my second favorite game of all time, it's on the Sega Genesis, and it's Kid Chameleon. And I know this one might even scratch some heads, but this one has endured for me for many years, since my childhood. After all these years, I still keep coming back to it, so that's got to say something. Chase, what's going on, Chase? We're doing well. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Talking about some of my favorite games. Just talked about Uncharted 4, my favorite game of all time. And now we got Kid Chameleon on the Sega Genesis, my second favorite game of all time. See, Suave knows Kid Chameleon is dope. But no idea what it is. So let me talk about Kid Chameleon for a moment, okay? Kid Chameleon, I tell people that to describe Kid Chameleon, I've got to compare it to a completely different, way more successful character in series. Because that's what it reminds me of. So growing up, we didn't have Nintendos. We had a Nintendo 64 at one point, but we didn't have the original Nintendo. We didn't have the Super Nintendo. We had a Sega Genesis. So we played this. And to me, being that we couldn't play the original Marios, Kid Chameleon was our Mario. Now, granted, yes, we had Sonic, which was our Sega mascot, but Sonic is kind of a whole different thing in my eyes. Yes, it's a 2D side-scrolling like platform thing, but he's got completely different mechanics, and there's a whole different thing about Sonic, where like the longer I think about it, the more Kid Chameleon reminds me of some of the original Marios in many, many ways. So 2D side-scrolling platformer, just like Mario. Our protagonist here, I believe his name is Cassie, I think his name was, he would go around, and instead of collecting coins, he collected diamonds. He would get power-ups, not like mushrooms and like the little flower for the fire powers or things like that, but he would get different helmets, which would give him different powers to help him progress through the levels. In like the original Mario, by the time you get to the end and get to the castle, you get a flag. You hit the flag, and he goes into the castle. The end of the levels in Kid Chameleon, you hit a flag. I mean, there's just, you hit different boxes. Those boxes either give you the diamonds or they give you your power-ups. I mean, there were prize boxes, just like there were like prize boxes in Mario. So it's like the longer I think about it, the more really this was our Mario growing up, and I still love this game to this day. This game had... at the time I feel like it was pretty large. It had over 100 levels in this game. And if you went flag to flag, I've actually never went flag to flag in this game. I've never legitimately beat Kid Chameleon. I have beaten it because there's one way that you can just get to Kid Mario. Pretty damn close, Chase. But there is a way to get to the final boss in the second level. So I've done that, so I've seen the ending of the game, but I've never went flag to flag, because the thing about Kid Chameleon, there are no ways to save your progress. It's not a thing. And unlike some other games, even in that time, like the original Sonic had a button combination you can put in on the main screen, and it would at least give you a level list. So you could go back and select whatever level you wanted and kind of start where you left off. Kid Chameleon had none of that. So every time you powered off that console and turned it back on, you had to start all over again. Every single time. And with 100 plus levels, it was like there was no getting through this game. But it's even got an interesting story to it. The story of Kid Chameleon is that there is a new arcade machine in the arcade, and the machine is called Wildside. And this game you could walk into. And once the doors closed, it would produce 3D images around you to create a virtual environment. It was 3D virtual reality. Way back then, they had this idea in this game, but the twist to it is that the boss in the game would beat the kids in the game and wouldn't let them leave. They were trapped then inside the game, so your character had to then go into the game and defeat the boss to free the kids from the game. That's the whole story of the entire game, and I still find that fascinating to this day. Over the years, I had it and played it on the Sega Genesis when I was young, and over the years, I always found other ways to play it. Even when I didn't have a Genesis, I would find some kind of a plug-and-play deal where you just hook the little plug and play to the AV jack in the TV, happen to have Kid Chameleon on it. I then went and got, years later, a Sega Genesis collection for the PS3 that had Kid Chameleon on it. I think as it stands right this minute, I've got 3 or 4 different ways I can play Kid Chameleon at this point. And so none of that was because I sit there and thought to myself, oh, that's one of my favorite games ever. It just, I really enjoyed and really loved this game over the years, and so I had to think about it and go, if I really have to nail down and think about some of my favorite games of all time, and after all of these years, I can still come back to this, plug it in, and still enjoy it as much as I do, Kid Chameleon has to be up there at the top of the list. I love this game, and probably always will. Yes, it's probably my favorite game I've never beaten. Yeah. So the only way I've ever beaten it is use the skip to the last level skip in the second level, or I've never would have beaten it myself either. I did a one-off of it quite a ways back. This might have been over a year ago or something now. But at the end, because Suave Beardson, he does speed running, I know that there's a speed run leaderboard for Kid Chameleon, and so I attempted it. And the world record's like 1 minute and 30 seconds or some ridiculous nonsense. And I think it took me like 4.5 or 5 minutes or something like that to basically start the game and beat the final boss. So I took the old college try stab at it. So I tried, but I did it though. I did. Super Mario Brothers for the longest time before I ever beat it. Yeah, none of the Marios have ever beaten either. I never had them when we were younger, and by the time, even now, I've got a way to play all of the original Super Mario Brothers, whether it be 1, 2, 3, or even Lost Levels. I am not that interested in going through them, so I've never put that kind of time into Mario's to try to beat any of them, in all honesty. It just never interested me that much to try to go through any of the Marios. Now, I will say there is a Mario that I had been thinking about getting a copy of that I don't currently have, that I thought about getting and adding to the stream rotation. I'm not sure why, but something about it intrigues me. But it's for the GameCube. It's Super Mario Sunshine. And there's a part of me that wants to get that and play through it. And again, I'm not really sure why that one stands out in my mind of why I want to get a copy of it and play that one. But that's that is on the list of something that I want to look for one of these days and get a copy of. I want to enjoy Kid Chameleon. You were last. Remember that much. Oh yeah, for my my one speed run attempt for trying to do Kid Chameleon. Yeah, it wasn't last, but I was way down there. But it was my first attempt, and like in order to get a decent time, I mean the grind would have to be severe. And I was going to do none of that. 4 minutes and 49 seconds. Oh, would you go back and check it for me? Appreciate that. Thank you. I did enjoy trying to do it once, but hey, if nothing else, I at least got to see the ending by doing that. So that was the thing. So to go over my third favorite game of all time, and then we can start discussing something else if you'd like. My third favorite game has, I think, a lot of, just the best. Even the bad ones can bring solid memories. Okay, so before I talk about that next game, yeah, Chase, you're right. There are some games out there that, they're amazing, and for me, that Uncharted is one of them. It gets me so sucked in to the story, the visuals, the characters, and I get lost in that story, and I love every bit of it. But yeah, then some of the bad ones are so bad that you can reminisce years later with those that experienced it with you and go, do you remember that steaming pile of trash? Yeah, it was awful. Kind of like Siberia. There's some games that also traumatize you for life. We have No Mercy. No Mercy was very traumatizing. Yes, for many years. Because we didn't know it Chase said No Mercy is so good, though. Here's the thing, Chase. I'll explain for Swab. You've probably heard this. That game, dude. So, we got No Mercy. It must have been like right when it came out. Because from what I understand, I could be wrong on this, but from what I understand, the original like first print and copies of that game, they were flawed. They were faulty. And we didn't know about this until many years later. So the copy that we had, we would play for hours. And you remember the SmackDown Mall. The SmackDown Mall is where you took all of that time and all of your SmackDown bucks, or whatever the hell it was that they called them, back then. And you would go to their shop and you would unlock additional characters, weapons, costumes, arenas. I mean, all types of stuff, right? And so we would spend hours purchasing a bunch of this different stuff. We would turn the console off. We would turn the console back on sometime later, and all of that was gone. It had disappeared, and it was like we had never turned it on before. It was like it was a brand new cartridge all over again. And this happened over and over and over again. The real kicker of it, though, was I recall that there was a couple times we would shut the console off, we'd turn it back on, and it would all be there. It saved our progress, and it would be just fine. And so it was like, okay, well then maybe we didn't do something right. So we'd play some more and we'd shut it off, turn it back on, and everything would be gone again. So it messed with us. So that original run of cartridges was faulty to where it would do that, and it would basically not save your progress. And it wasn't until years later, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Suave, but wasn't it in like some kind of was it a Game Informer magazine, or was it like some article that you seen online somewhere where the developers knew that this was a problem, and you could actually send your cartridge into them and they would send you a replacement that was fixed that problem. We didn't know that, and so we never got the new like updated fixed cartridge when we were younger. We just never had that. Forgive THQ for taking away the Howard Finkel unlockable character away from me. And Lurk knows it. Dick diggity dog. Yeah, that lives rent free in my head. I'll tell you that. Had a mind of their own. They did. They really did. And it was just that, like, there was a bug in it, and eventually, apparently, they fixed it. Yeah, and there was a recall, and you could send it in and get a different version, a different copy of it that fixed that problem, but we had no clue. Now, the copy that I have that I went and purchased many years later must have been one of the fixed ones, because it doesn't have that problem. Mine saves and works just fine. So now I'll talk about, for a few moments, my third favorite game of all time. And I feel like it's got a lot of similarities to my favorite game. And those similarities are amazing characters, amazing dialogue, amazing interaction between the characters, an awesome story, and set pieces that are iconic. The graphics don't hold up very well these days, but it's my personal opinion that everything else is so rock solid and amazing. It makes up for the graphics and the visuals, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And that's the original Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. This game is phenomenal. To this day, this is the only Metal Gear Solid I've ever played. I plan on changing that some time from now. I have a plan when it comes to these Metal Gear Solid games. But Suave had been playing this for many years. I mean, since we were kids. I've seen the story and the characters and all that stuff from this so many times that even before I played it, I knew the game fairly well. But the characters are amazing. The story is fantastic. The dialogue is amazing. It's just like everything about this game, maybe with the exception of the graphics, is phenomenal. But the graphics don't bother me because everything else is so fantastic. This game has basically everything else that I could possibly ask for in a game. And this game, I feel, this is my personal opinion, that this game is so iconic that the rest of the series couldn't get away from it. I mean, you even go back to some of the later games, like MGS4, and when your antagonist group, like the Beauty and the Beast group, still has the code names from a bunch of the bosses from this game, and they even include at one point a bit of Psycho Mantis into it. It's like they tried so hard all this time after MGS1, they still couldn't quite get away from it. I mean, Foxhound, one of the greatest stables of characters ever. Period. The groundbreaking stuff that they did with breaking the fourth wall with Psycho Mantis and reading your memory cards and your, messing with your controllers and all that kind of stuff. Like, it was amazing. And so, Metal Gear Solid, from the minute I boot it up, I can watch the briefing files and get all the backstory leading in, and then just be completely sucked in, zoned in, and just invested completely from start to finish. Absolutely love this game, and I can't wait to play more of the series. I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see here. I remember hanging out and playing No Mercy. I'll never forget. Go home to Tonka. You're drunk. You've never got past the first screen? The first screen in what? In Metal Gear Solid? Or I don't, as I was talking, okay, I wasn't sure because as I was talking, I know the chat kept going, and so I didn't know if that was relating to something else. But if you've never even got past the first screen in MGS, that's unfortunate. And I severely suggest that at some point, if you can find time to play it, give MGS a try, because It's amazing. I love that game so much. And when I go to get into many of the others, I will be revisiting this, but I'll be revisiting it in a different way. I don't want to give that away right now. It's going to be it's part of a plan of something I want to do revolved around Metal Gear Solid, but I will get back to that at some point on a playthrough. So, kind of surprised to see that make list since you've never played them like I did. Yeah, and so Suave, to that point, since I didn't play them like you did, I'm still familiar with so many of them because I've watched you play so many of them. But even just thinking about it, since I haven't played all of the other ones, still with other things that I had mentioned, that I feel like this set the stage for the series, for the rest of the series. It still comes back to a favorite. Now, if I were to go and actually play through the rest of them, that could change and it might get knocked out by a different one. But as it stands, yeah, it's up there in my top 3. Stan was like, "No, you're garbage since the day you were born." Dude, Liquid's another example. Liquid Snake, they killed off in the first one and they knew that was a mistake and they couldn't get away from it. And he's still a focal point in one way or another through the entire rest of the series. They couldn't get away from him, and it all stems back from this first one. So, played and beat 2 and 3. Picked up 1 after, but just never got in the mood to play. So, that's also fair. MGS1, because, well, of the way that it looks, and it's a little rough around the edges, especially by today's standards. It could be, I could see, getting hard to get into, especially if you played 2 and 3 before even getting through 1. For us, well, at least me watching the playthroughs of them, because Suave was the one playing them, that wasn't like that for us. So we've seen 1 before 2 and 3, so it was a little different. Just games. I started the first one, but never got very far. But that being said, fuck Raiden. That one I will agree with, because Raiden's a bitch. Man, Raiden is the real deal. He did Sneaking Mission 60, and no one cared. No one gave a damn how many VR missions Raiden did. Without MGS1, there is no MGS 2, 3, 4, or 5. Yes. You start with 2, I could see going back to... Yeah, so same point. So yeah, the Metal Gear Solid game and that series I need to revisit. I love Kid Chameleon, and I love the Uncharted series. The Uncharted series is my favorite series of all time. I absolutely love every single game in that series. Nothing else comes close to me. So, Ryan did VR missions, and the crowd goes mild. No. Raiden didn't even have a crowd because he had to try to brag to everybody every time he came to somebody how great he was in VR, and no one cared. They didn't even have a crowd. The crowd went nothing because there was none. And how to avoid bird shit mission 1. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. That's even a thing within that game. Chase, I don't know if I asked you this question or if you came in after I asked the question, but what would you say may be your favorite game of all time? I'd be curious to know. And let's see. Could kill him. A dude in Siberia. Yeah, just bouncing his head off the floor several times. That's probably the best thing about Siberia is they put in so many different ways that you can just off the guy. It was hilarious. that might be the only redeeming quality that the game has. Like, you just want to find different ways to mess with this dude. Just play Siberia for a little bit. Okay, so Chase says The Last of Us 1 and 2. So, I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but they are on the list. The Last of Us being that it's another Naughty Dog series, and I love what they've done with Uncharted. And every time I hear about The Last of Us, they talk about the story, they talk about the characters, they talk about the setting, all things that I love in a amazing game. It's like, how can I not give those a try? So I am in the process of getting those games. I recently just got part 1. I still need to get part 2. And with the plans that I have, with the different games I'm trying to get to and the series that I'm trying to get through, I'm not sure when I'm going to get to The Last of Us, but it's on the list, and I will be going through them at some point. I will be playing them. I really want to. Also up there for me, though, I never had a Vita, so I never played Golden Abyss. That may be one of the coolest things I've had the opportunity and the chance to do here on stream and on Twitch was to play Golden Abyss for the first time. You can see it here over my head is my Vita sitting there. And luckily you can find anything about on YouTube these days. So at one point, I was looking to get some kind of a handheld gaming console to take to work with me because it was very slow at that time. And so I would do some things at work, and then I would have hours to sit there, and I was kind of losing my mind. So I was looking into different handhelds just to find something that I can get and take with me and just play on some of my downtime. And I thought about, because I was doing some retro stuff and I was being all nostalgic, I thought about getting me a Game Boy because I had Game Boys when I was younger, and I thought there were several Game Boy games I could go back and revisit and stuff. But then I learned that people were taking the Vita and they were jailbreaking them and modifying them. And the more I looked into that, I realized that people were jailbreaking them and modifying them so that you could hook them up to a TV or a computer and even stream off the thing. So I'm like, well, okay. Well, if I do that, if I can find one of those and I can get Golden Abyss, which I was in the middle of playing an Uncharted series playthrough at that time. I think I may have been through 2 or maybe even been playing 3 at that time. But I thought to myself, well, I've never played Golden Abyss. And if I could get one of those, and if I can figure out how to jailbreak and modify it and be able to stream off that, I'd be able to put that game into the rotation and put that in with the Uncharted series playthrough and play that one for the first time. And I was able to do that. And that was one of the coolest things that I've ever had the chance to do on this so far. That was a blast to do. To be able to hook up the Vita, be able to play that game for the first time, do something that I never imagined that I would have been able to do. It wasn't even fathomable that you could do that with something like that. And to be able to pull it off and do it was awesome. And Golden Abyss, even to its credit, is a fantastic game. It controls a little funky. But one of the things with the Vita back then was the touchscreen controls, and there's a touchpad on the back. So there's different controls with the touchpad too. And that's got to be one of the main reasons, if not the only reason, why the game has never been ported to any other console. It's still stuck on the Vita, and I got to imagine some of it is with the touchscreen controls. And there's one specific instance in the game, and you only do this once, but there is a camera on the front of the Vita and there's a camera on the back that you use the back camera at one point in Golden Abyss. So you get a piece of parchment paper and there's a hidden message on this paper, and in order to read that message you have to hold it up to a light source. In the game it's probably like Nate's lighter was a candle or something like that. But in order for you to do it, I actually had to like use my phone, my flashlight on my phone, and actually put that up against the back of the Vita in order to use that light source in order for it to get the message on the parchment paper in the game to pop up. So without a way to like completely overhaul things like that in the game, it may never be ported and it may be stuck for the Vita forever. And it's unfortunate because I thought it was a very, very well done game. The studio that did it, and I don't even remember right offhand exactly the studio that did do it, but they got the voice actors back, so they reprised their roles. It was very Uncharted-like. There were several artifacts and trophies and little odds and ends to pick up throughout the game. The story, once again, was phenomenal. For a Vita handheld game, the graphics and the visuals were done very well. The Golden Abyss is a fantastic game. I wish we would get a port of it on console sometime, but it was still great. Bad habit that if something gets hyped up a lot, I tend to avoid it. I do the same exact thing. When it comes to games, I want to see if I can start getting away from some of that because I feel like I may be doing myself a disservice by ignoring maybe some games that get a lot of hype that I do ignore because of that. Oh, everybody and their brother's talking about it. I don't even care anymore. Not even interested. But I want to maybe try to get to some other games because there may be some out there that I really like if I gave them a chance. So this won't live up to the hype. I've always worried about The Last of Us living up to the hype. But at the end of the day, once I really thought about it, it's like, well, Uncharted's my favorite game series of all time, and it's done by Naughty Dog. And being that it's also another Naughty Dog series, if they did anything remotely similar to Uncharted with their with the visuals, the set pieces, the story, the characters, and the interaction with those characters, I'm probably going to love it. So I need to give those a chance. Last of Us show. The Last of Us show, I don't want to give a chance yet because I haven't played the games. I want to play the games first. I don't know if they intertwine or they would give anything away for me, but I don't want anything to be spoiled for me if that is the case, so I'm putting that show on the back burner, at least for now. It does change some things for the game, so if you surprise either way if you watch the show or play. Okay, well, still, I'll probably do the games first before worrying about trying to watch the show. Enjoyed the Uncharted movie quite a bit too. It wasn't perfect representation of the games by any means, but it was a fun adventure. I'll agree with that. I enjoyed the Uncharted movie. I know it got a lot of flack from the fan base, and I'll give it some flack for some of the things that they did in the movie, because there's a couple things in the movie that mess up the timeline of other events that happen in the movie or in the games. But if I just ignore that and just take the Uncharted movie as a standalone thing, I do enjoy it overall. All things considered, in terms of favorite games, I feel like Red Dead 2 belongs on there for me, as well as it's just so long though. But damn, so that's another one I haven't played, but I watched Swab Beardson do a whole playthrough of Red Dead Redemption 2 not too long ago. Maybe it actually is a little while ago now. It just doesn't feel like all that long ago. But that had an amazing story and amazing characters, and for some reason I did not expect that out of Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar, their games, some of their games are iconic, and some of them are even changed the game as we know games today. Like, I have to give credit where it's due, and when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, completely flipped the script and changed the game. So then they took that success, of course, and made several different games, after that that are iconic and that are amazing. And then spawned, other game series off of that, like Red Dead Redemption. And now Lurk mentions Bully. Bully, I know of. I've seen gameplay from. I know that there's a fan base out there for it, but I've never done a full playthrough of it or nothing. I've actually never really truly played it. And Chase, with Bully, the best Rockstar game ever made, I will not be taking questions at this time. So Chase is going to speak Bully to high regard also. But so I know of that one. I know that one gets held into very high regard. I know, from what I understand, it's a game that would not fly today. But, the fact that Rockstar, even with some of the Grand Theft Autos and stuff that they got away with, it caused an uproar. They pushed the envelope and they broke the mold with a bunch of their games. And, I have to commend Rockstar for that because, again, what it done for the gaming industry as a whole, it can't be understated. And so for them to also come out with something with a story and characters like Red Dead Redemption 2 shows their versatility. I do kind of wish we would get a few more releases a little bit more often than what we do these days. And so I know GTA 6 is getting ready to be a thing, and that's another one where Suave said something about, the hype. It's been so long and is so hyped, and GTA 5 has drug on for so long, and that online has drug on for far too long, and I can't give a damn about online games in any sense of the word. So I'm not going to lie, I could not begin to care any less, I don't think, than what I do for GTA 6. Now, if they were to do some more Red Dead Redemption, I would be interested. That I would be very much interested in that. What was the best? Let's see. I played it once back in the day. Didn't love it, but didn't hate it. A Bully sequel for so long, but I didn't trust Rockstar anymore. So again, I don't think Bully would fly today. Period. And so we'll probably never get a sequel for that game. And to be honest, that is probably for the best. If Bully is such a fan favorite amongst Rockstar fans or game fans in general, that may be one that might just be best well left alone and just enjoy it for what it is, for what it was, and leave it be. So that way it can't be ruined with a sequel or something. You know what I mean? To get GTA 6 for the PS8 in about 15 years. So we got plenty of time. That's true. Got plenty of time for that one. Because if they're trying to put, have such a long life cycle, on their games these days, that it's kind of disgusting in a way. Now, if a long life cycle and a long turnover to the next game in the series results in a thing like Red Dead Redemption 2, okay, I will give you a pass on that, for the story. But if it just all comes down to that BS online crap, I don't care. I really don't give a damn about that. Station 2 has 3 GTAs. 5 if you include the Vice City stories and Liberty City story ports. Yeah. GTA 5 has had 3 PlayStations. Yeah, indeed. And again, with that online mode, I understand that's what has made that survive for so long. But I'm sorry, I can only do so many heists and blow up so many other people in a lobby before I can't care anymore. I can't care anymore because it just drives me nuts. And it was one of them things too. All right, y'all gonna get me on a whole tangent on all of that stuff. So the whole online play nonsense, that whole pay to be the best thing, drives me up the goddamn wall. So everybody with their damn shark cards and all that and getting the biggest, baddest weapons and everything from the beginning and just messing with those that can't afford that drives me nuts. And it completely drives me away from trying to play online games with other people. I can't do it. It drives me absolutely nuts. Just today that I should replay the PS2 GTA games. So, Lurk, when it comes down to the PS2 GTA games, I have one of them. I still have San Andreas, and that copy is probably one of the few games that I had when I was younger that is still my original copy. And it is my original copy, and I know it's my original copy because I tried to trade it in and couldn't. I can't. GameStop's, I think still now, will not take the original Black Label copies of GTA San Andreas. They won't do it. So I tried to trade it in. They wouldn't take it. And so after all these years, I still have it. And because of that, I'm glad I still have it because it's one of those ones that I can date back to, my PS2 gaming days, so I still have it. And now I'm going to cherish that copy now because of that. I had thought about going in at some point, adding that to the stream list of doing a playthrough of San Andreas because it has been many years since I've played that game. I don't try to get my hopes up too high for modern game releases anymore, but Red Dead Redemption 3 will have my hopes extremely high. So, yeah, that's another whole thing. I'll touch on that in a second. Let me catch up on this chat here. So as much as I don't care for GTA 5 Online, getting that game on PS3, Xbox 360 is still damn impressive. That was one that part of me thinks I should have kept my copy of because I think when we were trying to get other games for the shop, I think I may have gotten rid of my copy of GTA 5 on the PS3 because I had that one too, but I did get rid of it though. So I have all 5, though 3 is scratched to hell. Just in the last couple of game shops that I went to last weekend, I found a pretty mint copy of GTA 3. And I was this close to picking it up. I didn't. But that was because I had already spent a lot of money that day. I picked up several games that day. So I don't want to give away what it was that I picked up because I have a whole video coming out about that on the other channel next Sunday. So check that out and you can see all the different pickups I got from those other shops. But I almost picked up a copy of GTA 3 just the other day. Just because I play shark cards to play GTA because I'm a piece of absolute shit. That's what I care about, or whatever Ray Zelinsky said in Tommy Boy. It was pretty close. Autocorrect. Messed up the game, but yeah. Yep, nope, completely understand what you were going for there, and I got you. Yeah, no, and it's hilarious. That is pretty funny. Replay 3, Vice City, San Andreas 4, and 5, all kind of recently. GTA 4 is so damn good. Here's the thing. So about GTA 4. GTA 4, I think, is the only one out of 3, Vice City, San Andreas, 4, and 5, that I never finished the main game. I never finished GTA 4 because I couldn't get behind Nico as the main protagonist. Couldn't do it. I did not like Nico at all and just could not get into that. Now, on the flip side of that exact same GTA 4 coin, when they went and did the DLC, the add-on, The Lost and Damned, that may be my favorite GTA story out of all of them. And I have added that to the list some time ago of I want to go back and play. I want to go back and play through GTA 4, The Lost and the Damned. Part of that is because I enjoy motorcycles. I do ride motorcycles on my spare time. I have an entire other YouTube channel that I've been doing for is that 5 years now? No. How long ago was that? No, 9 years. Been doing it for 9 years now, where I got some GoPros and stuff. I attach them to the handlebars, and I'll go to different motorcycle events, motorcycle rallies, or just other areas that have some nice view and some nice scenery. And I'll record my rides, and I'll post them on that YouTube channel. So I do like riding my bikes on occasion, and whenever I get the chance. But so the Lost and Damned kind of caught my eye because of that. And the fact that, I get to ride these different choppers in formation in this motorcycle club and all that stuff, that to me was awesome. And that to me, I enjoyed that not because it was a GTA game, but because it was like a motorcycle game, a motorcycle club game. It's very similar to like Assassin's Creed. I really enjoy Vikings. I enjoy I like the Viking culture, the Viking mythology. And I was really big into some of the Viking shows and movies at the time. So I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for all those of you that don't get the joke. But I played that one and really enjoyed it, but not because it was an Assassin's Creed game, it's because it was a Viking game. And I really love that. So GTA 4, The Lost and the Damned, is something that I want to get back to at some point because I really enjoyed that and I want to play through that again. Was the only GTA line I've ever beat. Okay, yeah. So Suave is the same way. Never did get through the main line part of 4. He whines a lot about his circumstances, but never really tries to change them. I don't recall that about Nico, but I couldn't get into that character at all. It just I just couldn't do it. Like you're talking about riding an MGS2. I recommend playing all 3, the main story, Lost and Damned, and the Ballad of Gay Tony. So the Ballad of Gay Tony portion of GTA 4 I never tried at all, period. And I think by the time the Ballad of Gay Tony came out, I had played through the Lost and Damned because I think the Lost and Damned was first. So I tried to play through the main story of 4, couldn't do it. Went through the Lost and Damned and loved that. So by the time that last one came out, I think I just kind of went, you know what? I'm good with GTA 4. The Lost and Damned was amazing. I'm going to leave it at that. So I didn't give the other section, the other part, the other DLC a chance. So maybe at some point I might have to, but I don't know when I'd ever get to that. Yes, Ian, so Chase knows about Assassin's Creed Flaha. So, so Suave with the question, do I have a favorite PS3 game? And it was. PS3 was a game changer. You know what? Yeah, I do. So if I had to, so when I'm talking about like my favorite games of all time, I think with Metal Gear or Uncharted, on a list like that, only one game in a series is allowed. You can only have one entry in a list like that, because if not, then if I were to say my favorite games of all time, well, Uncharted takes up the first 6 slots. So it's not even fair. But with a question like what's my favorite PS3 game, Well, then I'd have to also go back to an Uncharted, because Uncharted 2 is probably my favorite Uncharted after 4. And being that that one was on the PS3, um, I'll have to go with Uncharted 2. Uncharted 2 has everything that 4 does, and it took everything that Drake's Fortune did and made it so much better. The main the first game, the story takes place for the most part on one specific island. And there was a lot of just mowing down wave after wave after wave after wave of enemies. and and there was, it seemed like, going back through it when I did my series playthrough of the games, that wasn't a whole lot of puzzles to it like I remembered. But then by the time 2 came out, they took everything from the first game, and I think they perfected the Uncharted formula, so to speak, in 2, because the setting changes several times. You have an antagonist that you love to hate and was done so well, but the dialogue is still there. The character interactions is still there. The combat is still there, but they tweaked it a little bit. I think there was another one or two different things as far as the combat mechanics in 2 that weren't present in 1 that really made that so much better. Uncharted 3 is still amazing, but there's something about 2 that is still better than 3. And being that Uncharted is at the top of my list, I'm going to have to go with Uncharted 2. But there's a lot of amazing games and a lot of my life that got spent on the PS3. I'll touch on that in a second once I read some of these other comments here. The ever-living fuck out of the original Red Dead Redemption. So Chase has the original Red Dead Redemption on the PS3, which probably also isn't a bad choice. I know when Suave went and played that on stream recently too, because he did 2 and 1. Comparing the first one to the second one, I don't know. I feel like the first one would be very hard to get through these days. Now, mind you, when that one first came out and 2 wasn't a thing yet, I'm sure that the first Red Dead Redemption was fantastic. I could see that. But now in comparison to 2, it's just... Now, again, if with the question being what would be your favorite PS3 game, I could see how Red Dead Redemption could be up there for some people. Sure. Once 100%. And never touched it again. Assassin's Creed Revelations was a great PS3 game. The opening and the ending were just so bad. Uncharted 3 is my least favorite game in the series, but I'd argue it has the best villains. Okay. Red Dead Redemption 1 was a product of its time. Absolutely. So I prefer some of the mechanics from Red Dead Redemption 1 over 2. So yeah, with Red Dead Redemption 1, I have, but I've never played. I was worried when Red Dead Redemption 1 came out, being that it was a Rockstar game. My mind automatically assumed that Red Dead Redemption 1 was just going to be GTA in the Wild West. And that thought did not appeal to me. Wasn't interested, so I never, ever gave it a chance. Now, when Undead Nightmare came out as a standalone thing, I did buy that, and I did play through Undead Nightmare, And I did that just because, I mean, the zombie craze was a big thing, right? Everything was zombie related at one point. We couldn't get away from it, no matter what it was. Um, so I played Undead Nightmare because it was a zombie game, and I enjoyed it. I haven't played that in years either. Um, at some point, maybe need to go back and give that another shot too. But I recall enjoying Undead Nightmare, but that's the only Red Dead Redemption I've ever played. Um, Playthrough with a PC port that just released. It's such a hard time playing a game at 30 per second these days. So yeah, now that Red Dead Redemption 1 has that PC port, I've also already seen articles about the modding community doing some mods. I've seen some little gameplay snippets in certain videos of different mods that have come out for it. Texture mods and the like. And I'm sure that maybe a little more time and the mod community really gets completely invested in this and you can get a lot of different mods for it. I'm sure that the game would look fantastic and would run smooth as silk and may make the game even that much more enjoyable. When you did that playthrough of it, Suave, the game to me just didn't seem like it was paced very well. Again, at the time, it might have been fine, in all fairness, but it seemed like that it dragged, and it took forever for anything to go anywhere. And so these days, I don't know if I would really get a whole lot of enjoyment out of playing it personally. Certainly play it that way is a he says the Undead Nightmare DLC is definitely a game. The story isn't really worth 5 cents, but the gameplay is fun. The story in Undead Nightmare is a little out there, and the fact that by the end, his family that was already infected just turned out to be fine. I'm like, as far as I'm aware in anything else zombie related, that's not how that works. It was an interesting choice what they went with there. Would be way more enjoyable. Fighting in Civil War for 60% of the game isn't the most enjoyable either. Yeah, so, again, in all fairness, we'll have to give Red Dead Redemption 1 its props regardless, because it went and later gave us Red Dead Redemption 2. Without Red Dead Redemption 1, there is no 2. And 2, even though I've never played, again, with seeing that playthrough of it, I absolutely love the game, and I haven't even played it. So, one thing about me, and I know I've probably said this at this point, but I'm going to reiterate the point a little bit. When it comes to games for me, it's not necessarily about the gameplay. It doesn't have to be necessarily about the graphics. To me, it's all about the story, the characters, character development, and the dialogue, how that dialogue is delivered. I want to believe in these characters. I want to get drawn in by these characters, and I want to enjoy the story. If the story is lackluster, if the characters suck, if the dialogue doesn't represent the character's emotions, whatever that emotion is, and I can't believe in what that character is saying, I am not going to be able to get drawn into it, and my attention to that is going to wane very quickly. So to that point, trying to get into some of these older games like I do these days, some of that is kind of hard. Some of that I kind of just have to say, you know what? I have to go into some games these days with a certain expectation. So when it comes to some of the older games, if I like fire this console up right here, I know right away I'm not going to get into a game on this for a well thought out, well planned, well written story. It's not going to happen. That just, at least in a story the way I like it to be presented to me. There are some games, sure, that probably do have a story, but even games with a fantastic story that are a little bit older that I have to read all the text, I can't get drawn in as much as one that all the characters are voiced, just because it adds that much more to me. So I have to go into a bunch of these older games nowadays with the intention of I'm playing this just to play the game. Just to play the game. But there are other ones, especially ones that I know or ones that are part of a certain series that I'm somewhat familiar with, where I will go into it going, I expect a story out of this. I expect a good story and I expect good characters. If it doesn't have that, I am going to zone it out and may not even finish it. One example, so Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I loved. It's a fantastic game. Too damn long, so it'd probably be a long time before I ever play it again, but a fantastic game nonetheless. I loved everything about that. So I went and tried to go and play Origins, got a couple hours in, and because Bayek has the personality of a rock, can't do it. Played a couple hours, it has sat on the shelf ever since. I can't do it. Your characters and your story do not interest me, so I don't care. It could be one of the most sound games in terms of gameplay ever created. But if your story is not there, if your characters suck, I have a hard time caring. That's just the way I am. That's just, how I am as far as the games I'm looking for. So good because I was disappointed to find out that you didn't play as John. Just end up being disappointed to have to play John in the epilogue because Arthur was such a true G. Is it your stream? That was so good. Clark actually nailed the delivery of that line. Dude, I'm telling you, that was so funny. And all that, he's another one where it took that one performance for that actor to play Arthur, and that's it. Nobody else could ever play Arthur at this point. It's just never, ever, ever going to happen. And if he had to be recast for one reason or another, you might as well just write the character off. Don't ever use him again. If you do like another one, like say if Red Dead Redemption 3 is another like prequel beforehand and Arthur's in it, but you can't get the regular guy, just axe the character, because if it's not him, don't even do it. The dude messed with the wrong guy. Yeah, Origins sucked. Also isn't the Origins anymore. And so that's okay. That's a whole nother thing. The timelines. You got one that's Origins, and then, oh no, we're going to do this one now, and now this is the Origins, so Origins isn't the Origins anymore. Huh? What? So before getting into a series like that, I'd almost have to do a deep dive. Like, okay, where the hell is the timeline? Where does it start, and where the hell does it go? Because I got puzzle pieces that I need to put together here in order for any of this to make sense. So, let's see. Suave, did you answer the question of what your favorite PS3 game was? You may have, and with all of my talking, I may not have seen the answer. Went from being good series with a cohesive story. Trend hopping settings real fast. MGS4, I kind of figured as much. MGS4 also amazing. And So on that point, on that topic, when you bring up the PS3, I had thought about this some time ago. And I thought to myself, if I had to pick like my favorite game console of all time, it's hard, but I might have to say the PlayStation 3 because the PS3 was a game changer. You tell me it isn't Revengeance. Throw that game in the trash, okay? It's all about riding, throw it in the trash. Better yet, let me use the disc as, for skeet shooting. But the PS3 may have to be my favorite console of all time because it was a game changer. Lurk says the PS2, which that's not a bad choice either. But, to admit, I bought that game twice. Yeah, no, that's not something that you go bragging about. But the PS3, I remember, so the PS3 comes out, right? And at least the original ones, Dad bought one of the original ones. It was backwards compatible. So that was cool by itself. So you could play your PS2 and your PS1 games on it. And then with the PlayStation Network so that you could get some other digital games, which I don't care for doing these days if I can help it. I like my physical media. But at that time, being able to get digital versions of some older games that I couldn't find, perhaps, I have on my PS3. I've got 5 or 6 different digital copies of several different games on there that I bought over a decade ago. And there is a part of me that I'm kind of glad that I did because one of them specifically is a little pricey these days. And so it's well, at least have that version of it to play, but you could do stuff like that. I've complained for quite a while during the stream about how I don't give a damn about the online play, but back then to have the opportunity to do that was pretty cool for a minute. And then to be able to get the different streaming platforms on there too, your Netflix. I had the WWE Network over here when that was a thing. It's something different now. But I could watch that on there and watch a lot of my old wrestling that I grew up with off of that thing through the PS3. The PS3 had all of this cool stuff that it can do. You could put your own music and pictures and stuff on it, and which was cool because some games incorporated that. There was one particular wrestling game where I could use different music off of the PS3 that I put on it for the theme songs of the wrestlers in the video game. Stuff like that was so damn cool. But on top of that, I feel like the PS3 is where I kind of started to branch out a little bit in some of the games that I played. So I mentioned before that a lot of my games were wrestling or racing. There were a couple others in there a little bit that seemed like looking back on it's kind of what I focused on the most. But by the time the PS3 rolled around, I was still doing racing and wrestling games, sure. But I look back on this shelf back here, and there are so many games that took many hours of my life from me that I'll never get back that I enjoyed. So talking the Uncharted games, Oblivion, hundreds of hours into Oblivion. Skyrim, when that came out, was on that at first. I mean, I would play Skyrim mostly on the PS4 later on, but started with that. I probably got another 100 or 200 something hours into Skyrim on the PS3 even. So there's those. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and even some other shooters. I played Army of Two. Let's see. I played Mirror's Edge. I played... God, there were so many games on that console, and some of them were quite a bit different out of my wheelhouse than I typically normally would have played, and some of them became some of my favorite games. And so the PS3 just, it's, for me, hard to argue any other ones kind of being up there as my top, favorite console ever. And that was a time where that just might have been because of the time that it was. So with the PS1 and 2, I mean, we had mentioned it earlier, we had to trade in a bunch of our games in order to get different games. So a lot of that library kind of, went to the wayside. But by the time the PS3 rolled around, I got a job, I'm working, I'm making my own money, I got my own place, I could start purchasing different games and getting into some different games, and then I didn't really have to get rid of them unless I just didn't want them, or whatever, but I kept a lot of those that I had bought at that time. I still have most of those that I just talked about or mentioned still to this day. But I got to play a bunch of these different games and then hold on to them because I didn't have to get rid of them. So that was a thing too. So arguably the greatest console ever made. I mean, the PS2 is hard to argue for being one of the greatest consoles ever made. It's still to this day the highest selling game console ever made. It's still the best. It has still outsold everything. So yeah, you can make the argument, sure, that the PS2 is the greatest console ever made, but it depends on, I guess, how you ask the question. What's the greatest game console ever made, or just what is your favorite? They can be the same, sure, but if when you ask, like, so if somebody were to ask, like, what's my favorite one of all time, I'd have to go with a 3. For that. Holy Grail PS3s, man. Yeah, dude, if we had the money, there was that one shop that we went to where they had one of those Holy Grail PS3s that was backwards compatible and all that, and I would love to have one of those. Hell, I almost bought another PS4 the other day. Because it was like that, like, limited edition Uncharted 4 PS4. I almost bought that because they had it in one of them shops just because. I was like, there is no reason for me to do this. That's a lot of money I don't need to spend on a console I already have, but damn, it'd be cool to have. Let's see here. They really need to bring the downloadable music back to the PlayStation. Let us have custom entrance music in the wrestling games again. Yeah, dude, that was so cool. Yeah, the fact that you could only do that for a short time. It was only like 1 or 2 different games that we were able to do that on, because I think even on some of the later ones for the PS3, you couldn't do that. It was like 1 or 2 specific ones, wasn't it? So yeah, and the custom finishers, yeah. It was mainly graphics and game size upgrades. It was a smorgasbord of upgrades. A lot of things with the PS3 when that came out. I mean, I don't know what the Xbox 360 was doing at that time because, as far as I'm concerned, to hell with Xbox and everything about it. But there may have been, it might have been that entire generation. So a PS3 and Xbox 360, if you were on the 360 side, may have been doing a bunch of that stuff too. I don't really know. I just have to imagine they were doing a bunch of that stuff. But I guess that specific generation was pretty remarkable. And so, yeah, you look at, like, the leap and what they were able to do with what a console was or could be from 2 to 3. And then you see what happens after that. From 3 to 4, now 5, it's like, okay, well, these can also do all of that same stuff. It can do it better, some of it, to be fair, but it started with this, with the PS3 and that generation. So, yeah, exactly. Whole bunch of them just started wiring them together to make supercomputers. The last one you could. So 2K 2014. I didn't think I had that one. The last one I had was WWE 13, which was the last one that THQ did. I think it had CM Punk on the cover. And then I didn't get another one until 2K18. So I actually had quite a drastic, like, time in there where I kind of ignored the wrestling games, because to me they got to a point where they were just the same thing. Just updated rosters released every year. But So for me, yeah, it was like 13 to 2K18 or something like that. The Super G. Yeah. 2K ever made. 2K14. Say the best WWE 2K game ever made. I'll have to take your word on that because yeah, I've never played that one. I loved again. I want to say it was WWE 13. Wait, was it WWE 13? Because didn't was it 2K that took over and did 2K14? I'm getting my timeline kind of mixed up now. But there was, I think, WWE 13, which I think had CM Punk on it, and I think it was the one before that maybe that was 12. Or was it? There was one of them had Stone Cold Steve Austin on the cover, and that one I rather enjoyed, but that had the Attitude Era mode on it or whatever it was, so that you could go through the different like story arcs, the main story arcs of the Attitude Era, and I absolutely loved that. So that is one of my favorite ones that stick out, because of that mode alone. Because, well, that played into the nostalgia. Oh, that was 2K16? Okay. Yeah, that's right. So that one may be. So I had that one too then. So. Huh. So I must have went from 2K13 to 16. I went from WWE 13 to 2K16. So there was like a 3-year gap in there. Because I had 16, 17, and 18. But anyway, but they had that Attitude Era mode in there, and I love that. But I love the Attitude Era. That's, we grew up with that era, and that to me, still the greatest era in professional wrestling, period. So, that spoke to me, and I got to relive a lot of that, through that particular game. AEW Fight Forever was the best. Bro, don't even start with that AEW nonsense. Let's not even start. 2K16. All about the Attitude Era. Okay, well, maybe it was the 13 that is the one that I'm thinking of. So, yeah, a bunch of them I haven't played in a long, long time. So I'm getting a lot of those mixed up. It's been a while. 16 was the first PS4 wrestling game we had. And then with, the way things are going now, the last one that I got, which is what, 22, I think. I don't see actually getting another wrestling game for quite a long time. Bought 17 because Block Lobster. Yeah, Sock Lobster was on 17. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that wasn't cool. But so, which one was it? I think it was 18 because I didn't get 19, and I didn't, or did I get 19? Again, there's a couple of them there I skipped somewhere. But over on the other channel, I did a thing a couple years back where I used WWE 2K22 to record a bunch of matches with my own characters and my own like company and all that stuff, and created my own wrestling series out of it. And it was GWA, Global Wrestling Alliance. And I would edit all the matches together with my own custom logos and all of that stuff. And after I put all the matches together, I'd put them in my video editor, and I would record my voice over the top. And so I would do the commentary for it, and I did my whole own wrestling show like that. And that was a blast. I think I did 112 episodes of that series. It's a lengthy series, but I had a blast doing it, and it was a lot of fun. So I like to be able to take games and do things like that, with them. It's a lot of fun. And then 22 and 24. 14 and 19 are the best. I've gotten used to 24 now and don't despise it anymore. Excuse me. Yeah, again, I can't see getting any other wrestling game for quite some time. I don't see the point in it. It'd be one I'd have to probably give another several years before I get another one. And part of, a lot of my gaming stuff these days is going back to a bunch of the older stuff that I grew up with. So I've actually really considered about, going to one of these other stores and like picking up a copy of the original SmackDown versus Raw and, reliving something like that, or some of the other SmackDown games on the PS2, like, well, some of them are a little expensive these days. Like Here Comes the Pain. Some of them are actually a little expensive these days. But I thought about going and getting some of the older ones and maybe going through some of that a little bit. Instead of worrying about some of the newer ones. Station last month makes me wish I didn't buy it. Don't you hate that? So, I mentioned this earlier. 07 was the first wrestling game I ever played. Oh my gosh, Chase. Oh, bruh. You're killing me. So SmackDown vs. Raw 07 is the first wrestling game you ever played. Holy crap. I think the first one I ever played probably had to have been WWF Warzone on the original PlayStation. Pretty sure on that. It was either that or like WrestleMania 2000, but I'm pretty sure it was WWF Warzone on the original PlayStation. And I still have a copy of that one too. Hey, a new follower and someone else in the chat. So, I'm going to butcher this right away. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce that. I am sorry. Behave? I'll just say behave. But I appreciate the follow. And, yo, how you doing? You want to ask a question? That's what this particular stream's all about. Being that I recently, hit that affiliate status because of the viewers. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Suave, you want to... Yeah, thank you. And as much as I appreciate the follow, that there was no reason for that. But thanks for completely interrupting our conversation with something stupid like that. That's very much appreciated. Thanks. And yeah, Lurk said it had to happen eventually. Here it is. I've been doing this a couple years now, and it hasn't happened. So now, this guy or gal or whoever this was, has the distinction of being the first immediate ban because of something stupid. Either way, let us get back to our conversation. So, yeah. So you say, that SmackDown versus Raw 07 was the first one you ever played. That almost hurts because it says that I am much older, and that hurts in a small way. I also had Warzone. Warzone, I don't think I've done a one-off stream of. It's on my list, like so many. You know how many things have made the list? Many of them have made the list. And that's another one I want to do a one-off stream of here at some point, because I do have it, and I need to do a stream on that at some point. It's a wild way to come into a chat. Yeah, we're going to move on from that. So, the ban hammer. I like that. That kind of, goes right into the wrestling terminology that we're using. It's like, give him the old, dusty bionic banhammer. So, AJ Styles' stupid soccer mom hair. You know what? Leave AJ Styles' hair alone, man. He's the phenomenal one. He can have his hairstyle damn near any way he wants. And I say damn near because I could be shocked and go, no, that's got to go, man. But leave the phenomenal one alone, man. So I do want to get on the topic back of some games. Okay, that kind of threw me off there for a minute, and anyway, AJ with Enzo hair just wouldn't work. So yeah, it wouldn't. So I say I've got this huge list of different games that I want to get to, and I've added so many over the last several months. But there are some other games too that I really thoroughly enjoy that are on the list that I can't wait to get to. I just got to try to find some time to get them in. So, Suave will remember this one. So back in the day on the computer, we had a Road Rash. And it wasn't until some time ago where I realized that particular Road Rash on the PC was actually a port of a different Road Rash, which kind of blew my mind a little bit. But they also made ports of that same game on different consoles. So I don't have that original Road Rash on the PC, but I do have the PlayStation 1 version of that Road Rash, and I'd like to get to that at some point. So I got that. I've got some other Sonics that I want to get to, and then I've got some other series to get to also. I've got probably 3 or 4 other series that are on the list that I want to play, like, full series of. There's a lot of cool things that are coming that I can't wait to get to. Need to find a way to add Evel Knievel Wild Ride to the list. Dude, So sometime back, Suave sent me, like, these... actually, I think it was in the Discord, of some screenshots of this old Evel Knievel Stuntman game that we had on the PC, and I had completely forgotten all about it. But as soon as I seen that one screenshot, I'm like, oh my god, that came flooding back, and I remember that game so clearly now. And I would love to find a way to play Evel Knievel's Wild Ride. That would be a throwback for sure. And that's one thing that I'm loving about doing the streaming, but also going back to reliving a bunch of these older games that I played when I was younger, is when something like that comes up and go, how could I have forgotten? How could I have forgotten? And then so many memories come rushing back, and I absolutely love it. For instance, on the PC, we had the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. I've added that to the list recently because I was able to find that one on Steam as the deluxe version, or the retro version, or whatever it was called. There was a certain name for it that they called it, but it is the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. And so I have that on the list that I'll be able to do at some point that I'm pretty stoked about. Figure out how to play F-22 Raptor. There's another one. F-22 Raptor. I remember, but I also remember not being able to get anywhere in it because I don't know if we just didn't understand the concept of what we were supposed to do in F-22 Raptor, but we had that joystick, right? So Dad had the joystick, and we'd be able to fly this fighter jet around or whatever, and all we did was just fly it around a bit, dive bomb it into the ground, And we did that, from time to time, and that was it. That's all we ever did with F-22 Raptor. I don't even know overall what the game is even supposed to be about or what the point of it is. But that's one, like, if there's a way to play F-22 Raptor these days, might not be a bad one to get into, because there actually might be a game there, that might be fairly enjoyable if I actually got to play it. Super Dave. Not, man, look, Evel Knievel is a legend, okay? Let's not kid ourselves. So God, his name cracks me up. Look, it's about Evel Knievel, but there's a comedian out there, and I love listening to this guy because he's clean, but he's so funny, and he's very animated, which I love in, like, my comedians or, anything that I watch. The body language or the facial expressions or whatever go a long way. And so he's very animated and very loud but very clean, and his name's Brian Regan, and he's got this old bit talking about Evel Knievel, and it just cracks me the hell up. And the little bit, he says something along the lines of, and this is when Evel Knievel was still alive, mind you, he's passed now, but when he was still around, and Brian goes, I kind of feel sorry for that guy. They get him on these talk shows, and they always ask him, about his jump over the fountains at Caesar's Palace, where he bounced off the pavement 53 times. And they always show him the footage of the crash. And then they always ask him, like, so, Evel, do you remember what you were thinking about right before you hit the pavement? He goes, oh, no, I don't remember. And he's like, what kind of a stupid question is that? If you're to ask me, he'd be like, well, what do you remember what you were thinking about right before you hit the pavement? He's like, yeah, I think it was something like, ah! Something like that, if I remember right. It's just so funny. But yeah, dude, like, broke every single bone in his body multiple times and still kept jumping these Harley Davidson motorcycles that had no business leaving the ground ever, period. So, so Swap says, unless you got it from mailing in Tostitos barcode, you ain't getting the true Roller Coaster Tycoon experience. That's very true. I do wish I had, like, an actual regular copy of regular Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I'd be curious to know if it would even work, like, say, like, on this computer or anything these days, because didn't you try playing NASCAR Racing 2 on the computer, had the original disc or something, and the computer basically wouldn't even read the damn thing? So I just don't see, if I even had, like, an actual, like, Tostitos, copy of Roller Coaster Tycoon, that I probably couldn't even play it anyway. You ever hear about the second guy who tried to jump the fountains? Yes. I heard about that, and then I also know that just a year or two ago, I think it was Travis Pastrana on an Indian actually did make that jump. Now, mind you, all these years later, and all the technology that we have now, and the better, motorcycles and the things that they know about physics and everything else these days, completely different from when, like, say, Evel Knievel tried to jump it, because I think Robbie tried to jump him too, maybe. Actually, I think Robbie did successfully jump him, but I don't remember that right offhand. But I think it was Travis Pastrana on an Indian jumped him a year or two ago, I think. But yeah, I would like to know if there was a way that I actually could play that Evel Knievel stunt game. That would be pretty neat. It's a whole lot different today. Just third gear wide open, you'll be fine. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I don't know really what else to say about that, anymore. It's like, unless somebody wanted to use a sky cycle to try to jump the Grand Canyon again, I'm not impressed. It's a complete joke, by the way. It's like that whole idea was pretty silly in of itself. So I do have a little bit of time left. I think I was just planning on doing, excuse me, another 2.5 hours as I typically do for the length of my streams. So is anybody got anything else that you may want to ask or may want to talk about? Well, there's Suave with one favorite N64 game. That one is tough. That one's very tough because two come to mind right away. Chase comes in with the Conker's Bad Fur Day. And that one, just to touch on real quick, that one I've seen some gameplay on, but I've never played it myself. I know someone that has a copy of it, so maybe one day I may get a chance to borrow it perhaps, and I may be able to do a playthrough of it, but I've never played Conker's Bad Fur Day, but I know of it. Two N64 games come to mind right away. WrestleMania 2000, and of course, the tried and true 007 GoldenEye. And if I had to make a decision amongst those two games, I think I'd have to go with GoldenEye. WrestleMania 2000 is, to me, one of my favorite wrestling games of all time. It's clunky as shit these days. The graphics are not great, and it's there's many things about it that are not really that good these days. Superman 64. If you're serious about that, then well, all the more power to you on that. Shut up, Flirk. Like, no, I mean, if that's true, because, I mean, some people out there may really enjoy Superman 64, but I know what a dumpster fire that game is. So, and then Suave says, if GoldenEye isn't your top 3 N64 games, you're doing it wrong, and I'd have to agree with that statement, too. Like, look, GoldenEye, we don't shame people around here, but we got to draw the line somewhere. Like, look. But so yeah, so with 007 GoldenEye, I think that one's gonna have to take that top spot because not only was the game itself amazing, the story in it obviously was taken from the movie, which I didn't know of the movie at the time. But, and, these days I really could care less about any of the damn, multiplayer shit. But back then, to be able to sit down with, say, my brother and a few of my cousins or some friends or whatever, and do the 4-player split screen on a TV that's probably as big as this screen is that I'm streaming on here, and just cut that in 4. Like, look, that was a whole experience that people don't understand these days. But and then you got some of them cheats that really spruce thing up. The big head mode, the paintball mode, all that stuff. You could get ridiculous with it with the multiplayer doing slappers only or throwing knives or whatever. On iconic levels from iconic scenes of the movies or even some other scenes from other classic 007 movies. And so I am convinced, because anybody that I ever talked to about the Nintendo 64 says that if you had an N64, you had GoldenEye. It was, there's basically no way around it, and there's no, it's not up for debate. You had GoldenEye, and GoldenEye not only was a fantastic game, and I played a lot of the multiplayer with, family and friends, but also introduced me, I think, I may have known about 007 and James Bond before that, but I don't think so. I think that introduced me to the character of 007 and James Bond. And at that time, we had Pierce Brosnan, who to me is the greatest James Bond ever in history. Part of that may be a completely biased opinion, because growing up, that's who was Bond at that time. But he encompassed that character so perfectly well with being suave and being a badass, and with his remarks, his one-liners, and then the action that was involved. Like, Pierce Brosnan is Bond, period. There is no discussion to be had about it. But so the game then introduced me to the movie, which GoldenEye, I think to this day, is still probably my favorite 007 movie of all time too. So it just, to not say that GoldenEye isn't my favorite N64 game, I think would be a complete disservice, and I think I'd be lying to myself. So I know all my answers are long-winded, but I got to go into an explanation here. The novelty of having a 3D. So going back to the Superman 64, the novelty of having a 3D Metropolis to fly around in at that time. That was probably one of them things that they had a lot of ideas, and they had a grand plan, and it was either funding or timing or whatever. Superman 64 just probably, it might not have been completely finished. And even if it was, and that's what they came up with, it just wasn't. It's bad. It's really bad. But that's one thing I think is missing from the game industry these days. So a game like that will live in infamy forever because of how bad it was. There was no day one patches. There was no updates to fix it. If the game came out and it was broken and it was a steaming pile of garbage, it was a steaming pile of garbage, and it may have just ruined your entire development company. You sank or swam by what you released back then. And I don't feel like that's like that anymore. And I think that that's really lacking from the game industry these days, because they know they can just patch it and they can just release a broken, steaming pile of garbage, and they can just fix it later. Not a big deal. And so we can talk about something like a Cyberpunk or what was the other one? Was it No Man's Sky or something like that? Or how broken they are when they come out, but then, they got patches and they got updates over time, and now they're serviceable games now. It wasn't like that back then. If you released a game the way it was, that's the way it was, and you probably were closing your doors afterwards. So you had to take some damn pride in what you were making and making sure that you were putting out something that was good, that people were going to rally behind, and that people were going to go back to school and say, hey, I got this game and it's amazing, and then tell their friends, and it would create this buzz because it was a fantastic game. And so I feel like there's a lot of pride in games back then that gave us a lot of the classics that we have today, ones that we look at so fondly, that we have such good memories of because they were so good. And then you do have other ones like that were just that bad, and they'll be remembered for that. But nowadays, I have a hard time of thinking that there's anything released in the last several years, or maybe even going forward, that's going to release that was so good that they're going to be talked about 20 years from now because of how good they were, or how bad they were, but they updated them and they were fine later. No, they're just going to get forgotten about, I feel like. So I don't know. I feel like, I mean, to be fair, it's cool that they can do some updates and release some things and like add some things to the game to give a little bit more replay value, things of that nature. Like, I'm trying not to say that that's not good. I prefer that they just release a sequel, instead. But to be able to do that isn't terrible. But I feel like when they rely on that being a crutch of releasing an unfinished or broken game, it's lazy, and to me, it's a bad look for the entire industry. That's so a little bit of a tangent there. I apologize, but I wanted to get that out. Lurk says toss up between GoldenEye and Duke Nukem. I know Duke Nukem was a big thing back then too. I know a lot of people that played Duke Nukem. Never got a chance to play Duke Nukem, so don't have an opinion on Duke Nukem. But I know that Duke Nukem was a thing for a while, and then just dropped off the face of the earth. It seemed like. Kids yelling at each other for screen peeking on Fortnite when they're playing on two completely different consoles. Yeah, they don't even know the struggle. I seen like a meme just the other day of there was somebody like sitting on a couch, right? And like it was like their little brother or something like that sitting on the floor, piece of cardboard that they had bent over top of the little brother and like kind of taped to the TV so that you could get no screen peeking because they had an actual divider, and we didn't get that serious. So yeah, the screen peeking was a thing, and that's just what we had to deal with back then. But it gives it's memories that I'll always remember. Could towel snap a dude in the face, wrap the towel around it. Yeah. There's been some pretty impressive developer redemptions in recent years, so there has been. I wish that these developers. I could be wrong. It's just what I see, and I can't help it. But I feel like these developers just kind of rely on that as a crutch these days, and I don't think it's right. I think there should be more emphasis on just releasing good games from the start. It's like I don't understand how we've gotten to that point, I guess. Giving your little cousin or sibling the unplugged controller so they can think they're playing too. Yeah, there was that, and then I'm sure did it at some point. But back in the day, you would always have a controller that didn't work quite right. The joystick was wobbly or something, or the buttons stick, or something, or whatever. So yeah, the unplugged controllers, but I feel like at some point, like somebody would always get stuck with the junk controller, or, back then too, you wouldn't get additional OEM controllers for your console, right? You would get the one regular controller with the console when you got it, but then when you needed other controllers, your parents would end up getting you like Mad Catz. Who the hell around here remembers Mad Catz? So you would get like Mad Catz. Yeah, so yeah, you already said it. So them old Mad Catz. Yeah. So yeah, so you either had Mad Catz or you had some other cheap knockoff or something like that of some junky ass controller. And so somebody always got stuck with the Mad Catz, the other off-brand knockoff, or the one that had the like the limp N64 joysticks, or sticky buttons or something. And just, hey man, gotta have that edge, gotta have that competitive edge. Here, you take this one. Like say if this was like a friend or somebody came over, right? Like, so this is my console or whatever, and so here, you take this controller, knowing it's a piece of junk. or whatever. But sometimes you had to give and take on that a little bit. So when you went to their house, it's the same thing. You got the junky controller unless you remembered to bring your own or something, right? Or if, say, maybe somebody, one of the friends brought a game over to your house. Not the console, but the game. And so sometimes it might be a little give and take, like, okay, this is your game, so maybe you get this controller or whatever. You had to give and take with the Mad Cats and the OEM controllers and stuff back then. The best, beating your friend with a junk controller in a fighting game. Look, we don't want to talk about, like, somebody beating you in a fighting game, okay? I think that may be one of my beefs with fighting games still to this day, because I got a cousin. You'll see him here in the chat once every so often. But it goes by Squirrel Gaming here in the chat. But he, I remember, this is one of my oldest gaming memories. And one of the only times I think I ever played anything on the Super Nintendo when I was younger. But he had Mortal Kombat. I don't remember which one, whether it was 1, 2, or 3. But I remember he'd want to play Mortal Kombat with me because he played it religiously and he knew he could kick my ass, and always wanted to play against me just so I could whip my ass and just so he could try out all the different fatalities for all the different characters. Years later, would try to do some other kind of fighting game with him, whether it would be like Tekken or Soul Calibur or something like that. And then by this point, we got wireless controllers, right? And he would, again, play these games religiously. So I remember sitting on the couch one night, and I'm trying to play this fighting game with him. This guy gets up off the couch, goes in the other room with his controller, is in a completely different room, and continuing to whip my ass. I'm like, how? You don't even see the screen. How the hell can you do this when you don't even know what's going on? It's irritating as hell. I got a GameStop branded PS2 controller once. It was actually good. Sunk in lower so your fingers rested on them more naturally. I think with some of these off-brand controllers, right? Some of them, yeah, they'd be shaped a little differently, or they would even have, I think a couple of them either had extra buttons or something like that. Like there was a bunch of them that were a lot different. If I look around here hard enough, I might even still have one of the old like PS2 Mad Catz controllers, and there's a little orange one. It was a small little thing, so it fit in your hand a certain way because it wasn't the same size. But like the start and select buttons were like the same. It was like a translucent orange, and the buttons they didn't stick out, and they were kind of like even with the plastic, and they had the same plastic color as the rest of the controller, so they kind of blended in. So it looked kind of nice, and then since they were kind of sunk down and like level with the rest of it, when you were messing with the joysticks and stuff, you didn't have to like worry about hitting those buttons or something like that, which wasn't too bad. But the controller also handled like junk, half of your inputs didn't work right anyways, things like that. Like 1 or 2 HP, and then he just demolish you. Like, bro, why? Yeah, some people just gotta, do that flex thing, in some of them games, and it's irritating. And I don't know, some of that. So like playing split screen in some of them games, like a GoldenEye or something like that, and having a cousin say, keep your weapons down, and you can come in here and get this one, and I won't kill you, and he completely lied through his teeth and just gun you down. And then having another cousin that would just continuously whip your ass in fighting games. And, then you'd have, somebody else that wanted to play a different game with you and just complete. I think that ruined multiplayer for me. Whether it's local or online, not a big fan of multiplayer. Unless it's like full-on co-op and we have to work together, because I don't really care for like having to play against somebody, because I enjoy playing games, obviously, don't get me wrong, but A lot of those games, especially them competitive ones like that, I don't have that kind of time or that kind of patience to put into something to get that good, to be able to compete. So I just don't. And so I would just rather not play multiplayer with people. Give me a good one player, a single player story that I can get into, and I'm completely content with that. Again, unless it's a co-op. I would like to do some co-op, at some point with somebody. Sad gaming story you have. I know it's not trying to play after you did something, completely destroy the disc without realizing. Look. So I wasn't even going to bring that up. I think I probably had brought it up at some point already, regardless, anyway, at some point in these streams. I don't remember even what I did. But back in the day, Twisted Metal was one of my favorite series ever, which is funny. I'm sure we have. I thought we had talked about it at some point. But Twisted Metal was one of my favorite series ever. I had 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I've got the newer, the last Twisted Metal that they did on the PS3. I still have that one here. But Twisted Metal 2, I really loved. And I don't remember what it was that I did. But I think it's probably, we were very young. We're kids, right? He probably irritated me or something and was a little tattletale, you know what I mean? Did the thing. So he responds with taking my copy of Twisted Metal 2 and taking a key to it and just gouge the hell out of it and completely ruin my copy of Twisted Metal 2. But, so my most sad gaming story, I don't know, it may have to be that, because that was disheartening. Be willing to bet that I would say Swabs would be, when we were younger, we were always told, don't you ever take a disc out of the PlayStations without shutting the console off first. That's what we were brought up with. That's what we were told. Same thing with the cartridge games or whatever. If we had the Sega or whatever, you turn it off before you take the cartridge out, stuff like that. So he was playing Metal Gear Solid, hadn't saved it in quite a while, and went past where you have to swap the discs. So what'd he do? Turn the console off, swap the disc, put the other one in, turned it back up. Okay, yeah. So yeah, turned it back on, and lost a bunch of that progress. Because we didn't know that you were supposed to leave it on when you swapped the disc, because he was only doing what he was told, right? So that's probably pretty disheartening, I'm sure. Do I remember Crush Hour? I remember Crush Hour existed, but I've never played it. And I won't lie, I've thought about looking into finding a copy of Crush Hour. I know it's bad. I've seen gameplay of it. I know it's not great. And that's a whole nother genre that's died. It's car combat. And so played, back then, Twisted Metal, Vigilante 8. There was probably another one or two in there somewhere that I don't even remember. That I don't remember having or playing. I know there are other ones out there, but so yeah, I know of Crush Hour, but I've never played it. To his Twisted Metal 2, don't let him lie to you. The fact that he had to go and make that comment knows that he's trying to now, stand up for himself now. Having a Twisted Metal type game is so weird. It is weird. And look, they got Jim Ross. I don't know if they got the King. I think it is JR and the King to do commentary for Crush Hour. I know this because in the gameplay that I've seen, I've heard it. And it's just, it's bizarre. The one clip that I had seen, somebody was driving around. I don't know if it was a hearse or something, but I think it was like a hearse or something with the character was the Undertaker. And picks up the weapon, and you hear JR's voice going, "The Undertaker has picked up the rockets," and it's like, what the hell is going on? That does not belong. This abomination should not be a thing. And the fact that they got Jim Ross to do the commentary for this is so batshit nuts that I think I do have to find a copy of it just to play it to see how off the rails it really is. So, is it better or worse than just Bring It's commentary? Well, that I'm not 100% sure on because, again, I've only seen little clips of it. But Swaff knows no one can beat DDT. Yeah. So, the commentary in any of these wrestling games are all a little off. Like, with all the things they've been able to do with them, some of it still just is not right. So I don't know about the commentary completely for, like, Crush Hour, because, again, I've never played it. I've only seen little clippets of it. But, which The Rock has a great rock bottom. No, which one was that, Suave? Do you remember exactly which game that was? Because that was something that the commentary guy, I think it was Jerry Lawler, actually said in the game. And it said it this way every single time. It wasn't like a one-off thing where in the middle of the match, he would just come on the headset and say, "No one can defeat DDT." And it's like, how did those two things get mashed together? I don't understand. That doesn't... No, it wasn't Attitude. It was one of the SmackDowns, I'm pretty sure. I just don't remember which one because a lot of those run together. Whether it was Just Bring It or Shut Your Mouth or Here Comes the Pain. Those. It's been so long since I played any of them. They all kind of run together to me, so I don't remember which one it was. Pretty sure it was one of the SmackDowns though. Well, it is at the 2-hour 40-minute mark. So if anybody has any more questions, I'll answer one more and then we'll cut this off. I think that this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this entire conversation with all you guys, and again, all of this was because of your interest in the streams and being here and supporting it to get it, to that affiliate status. So, it'd be funny if JR was like, "No DDT, having King, and he had a stroke." Yeah, if only, I gotta imagine that was like just somewhere in the coding, right? But what's the first video game you ever remember playing? I don't think I've answered that, and that one is hard. That's a hard one because some games are very, very, very vague, and some of them recently with watching some other like YouTubers and things going over some old games where like I'll catch something of a certain game and go, "Damn, that looks so familiar. Where do I know that from?" And so the first one I ever remember playing, turning the Genesis off on you when I was like 4, was that probably when I was playing like Sonic or something like that, right? I'd have to remember. Yeah. So it was one of the Sonics, whether it was either 1 through Knuckles, one of those original 4, I'm sure. But recently I was talking to my dad and I asked him something about the Sega Master System, and I seem to recall that they either had the Sega Master System or they had, for the Genesis, you could get like a plug-in, like add-on thing that plugged into the cartridge slot of the Genesis that allowed you to play Master System games on the Genesis. So I don't remember which one that it is, but my dad remembers exactly what the Master System looks like. It's a rectangular box, black, with like this red strip across the top of it where the buttons were. So I'm pretty sure, I think he said he sold it to another family member, is what he told me. And this was not too long ago that he told me this. But, so, it may have been something on the Sega Master System, but I don't 100% know that to be 100% accurate, because there's some kind of helicopter game that's on there, and I can picture it in my mind right now, but I don't remember the name of it right offhand. I remember one of Sega's like early mascots was Alex Kidd. But I don't remember if there was an Alex Kidd. I mean, there was like 3 of them on the Master System or something. I don't remember if there was ever one that they had on the Master System, or if I remember at some point maybe playing the Enchanted Castle, which was a Genesis one. I don't remember. That's very fuzzy to me. It could have been a Sonic. It even could have been Kid Chameleon that I mentioned earlier. And that is one I know I played way back then, because that's why I remember it so fondly, because I played Kid Chameleon a lot back then. So there was Kid Chameleon, there was the Sonics, and then there was Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage 2, I think, specifically. Maybe the first one too, but specifically Streets of Rage 2. And I remember that one because it had the big, bulky wrestler, which was Max, and it had Skate, the little guy on the rollerblades. So it could have been any of those. It could have been Sonic. It could have been Kid Chameleon. It could have been Streets of Rage 2. It could have been one of the Alex Kids. I don't recall exactly right offhand, but it's somewhere in that area of the first game, one of the first games that I've ever played. I do remember the first game that I was not allowed to play. I do remember that, because I specifically remember... All right, thanks, Suave. I specifically remember that, you know, when the original Mortal Kombats came out, there was a big stink about them, right? There's a big uproar. For anybody who doesn't know, the amount of violence that was in Mortal Kombats, that went all the way to, like, the Supreme Court. It was a big deal back then. And that actually, I think, in turn, led to the rating system that we have today. Because if I go and look at some of the other older games that I have in my collection, like... Even Kid Chameleon here doesn't even have a rating on it anywhere. Just wasn't a thing. And then there's a couple other ones that I have sitting on the shelf over there where they were rated like GA, which was like general audience or something like that. So, but Mortal Kombat stemmed a bunch of that because of the violence that was in them. And I remember, and my memory on this might be slightly fuzzy too, but Suave, you may... remember this too. I specifically remember, I can see it. Dad had one of them giant, like, entertainment center things, the big ones with the whole massive stereo system. The speaker cabinets that were taller than we were or whatever back then. A big cabinet with this big glass door that had the magnet. And it had like 5 or 6 different like receivers and shit in it. So one would have like your tape decks for, you know, your cassette tapes. I think there was like a 6 CD changer or something in it. And then there was like 3 or 4 other things in this cabinet. And I seem to remember there was a slot. There was an opening or a blank space in between the top of the cabinet. You think they still have the cabinet, really? Okay. They might. I'm going to have to ask about that. But there was like the top of the cabinet, right? And then there was the top of whatever the top receiver was. And then there was a space in between there. There was a gap. And I seem to remember the case for Mortal Kombat would get kind of slid in there, and that's where it would sit because we were not allowed to touch that game. We were not allowed to play Mortal Kombat because it was too violent. And I specifically remember it being wedged, or not wedged, but slipped into that open space in between that like receiver in the top part of that cabinet. I don't know why. That may not be accurate, but that's what I seem to remember. It's in the dining room now. It very well could be. If it's the same one, and if I maybe if I've seen it and I just don't remember it being the one, it's just like one that they just got to put stuff in or something like that. But it could be the one. I'm gonna have to ask him about that. So, anyways, I'm gonna end up cutting this off. I think right now we're approaching the 3-hour mark. So, I appreciate you guys being here for this, and I hope that this was enjoyable to you guys. Again, as I was approaching hitting that affiliate milestone, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something special that was different than what I'm typically normally doing. And I didn't really have any other ideas. This was the first thing that came to mind. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I feel like to interact and have that. There's a word I'm looking for. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. To have that connection between streamer and audience, I think goes a long way. And so I wanted to make that connection even stronger if I could. And I was hoping that this would be a nice way to do that. I hope that anything that we talked about tonight was enjoyable to you. I enjoy talking to you guys about all of these different things. This was specifically to celebrate that milestone and to thank you guys for that milestone. I've said it before, and I'll say it again here now. I'm just a guy that sits here and plays games. And at the end of the day, I was going to do that anyway. So I just happened to have a camera, a microphone, and this headset, and I just hit the go live button, and somewhere along the line, you guys have come in, have found the streams, and have enjoyed it enough to continue to support it and continue to come back to it. And that's more than I could have ever hoped for. So when I say that, this was to celebrate that affiliate status and that affiliate milestone, I want to thank you guys because you guys did that, not me. I could continue to just sit here and do this and play these games and never have done that. It was you guys that had to come together and watch the streams and keep coming back night in and night out for that milestone to get hit. So that was all you guys, and I appreciate the hell out of you for it. So I hope that you got to know maybe a little bit more about me. Whether that was fun or enjoyable or not, I don't know, but I hope it was enjoyable for you. And I enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. So after this, it is time to get back to my regular scheduled programming that I had planned before getting to this. And so on the next stream, which is going to be Thursday, the regular Thursday night stream, I'm going to attempt to fire up the original Nintendo and do a one-off stream of the original Super Mario Brothers. And I say attempt because I've done a little testing with it to get it ready for Thursday, and I've been having a little bit of an issue with it. It's not wanting to read my cartridge very well. I've tried cleaning the cartridge out. I've tried fiddling with it, and I've tried to blow out the inside of the console. It's still giving me a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to try that Thursday, but I have a backup plan. Because if at some point this gives me a bunch of grief, well, I have Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo, so if I have to, I will just kind of swap things out. I could do that fairly quickly, and I will then play Super Mario Brothers on the Super Nintendo instead. I want to do it on the original system if I can, but if it doesn't work, then I have a backup plan. So Super Mario Brothers, one way or another, will be happening on Thursday, and then come next Tuesday night right here on the stream, I'm going to start my next full-length playthrough, and that's going to be on a newer game, probably the newest game that I've probably played in quite a long time, and I plan on doing or starting a playthrough of Stellar Blade on the PlayStation 5. That's going to be kind of interesting because there's actually a DLC that's getting ready to come out for it, and from what I just read earlier, it's a free DLC, so that's something I don't even have to pay for, which will be neat. But they're going to have some crossover content with another game called Nier Automata. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that stuff that's going to be added into the game apparently for free. So that'll be neat. That'll be releasing on that Wednesday. So I won't have that for the first stream. But by the time the second stream rolls around next Thursday of the game, I'll be able to theoretically have that stuff going on too. So that'll be cool. Suave should theoretically be finishing off A Plague Tale Innocence tomorrow night, correct? That's the goal. That's the plan. That's been an enjoyable stream, an enjoyable playthrough. So any of you that have been missing out on that, you can see the replays on the other channel. They're still up on his Twitch also for the time being. And so the final piece or the final part to that should be tomorrow night. And then starting the second one, Requiem, on Sunday. So stay tuned and check out Suave Beardson streams for that. So, one last time, Lurk Morrison, Chase, thank you guys very much for watching and supporting. Suave, thank you very much for not only watching and supporting, but for some of the things you've given me over the years to allow me to do this and supporting the way that you do, and for Nick, because if you wouldn't have given me, a bunch of these different consoles and games, this computer, the capture card, all of that stuff, also wouldn't be doing this. So for you guys, a big heartfelt thank you goes out to you. I appreciate everything that you've done for me, and I hope that we'll continue having some fun with even more games and more streams in the future. So with that, I'm going to have to call it a night, and I will catch you Thursday for a one-off of the original Super Mario Brothers on the OG Nintendo Entertainment System. So until then, I'm D, I'm the Grim Gamer, and we'll see you guys next time.